Joe, are you still playing Pokemon Go?
Somehow, like I don't, I feel like I do it mostly out of habit now, more than actually like trying to play it for fun. Like I feel like I'm bored and I just open it up and like, oh shit, I'm playing Pokemon Go again.
I was gonna say, I feel like
hmm
alcoholism is the same, isn't it? It's like, yeah, I can stop anytime.
hmm
You know,
I
this.
just want to stop. That's all. I just don't want to stop.
I, I love this
hmm
because we originally talked about this topic about 3 years ago, which
hmm
was I don't want to say it was like a positive spin, but it was more of a discussion behind how did Pokemon Go get started?
hmm
Like what was the origin story? Kind of what that vein was that we were kind of in back then, the old times.
Yes. Yeah, this was like I don't definitely not like our peak playing, but pretty darn close, right? Obviously, I think pre-pandemic is when I think we went the hardest at it. Maybe, yeah, because we played quite a bit before then, and then even like during the pandemic, we played quite a bit because you could be outside away from people. It was a great time. You could be spread out playing the game. But yeah, things have changed. The game has had several things, happen to it since we last talked about it. So I think it's probably time that we discuss these changes and whether or not we like them.
I was going to say it's worth going
Yeah.
back to now
Mm-hmm.
because, as you mentioned, Joe, yeah, I was playing it a ton in the very beginning, and I kind of went through my own little Pokemon discovery journey
Mm-hmm.
back then. Not being like the biggest fan of the original
mm-hmm.
stuff and all that, and obviously that's changed a lot over the years. But I mean, we're talking almost 8 years of playing a mobile game, which I mean, I can't say that for many other titles.
No, like outside of, is everyone still playing Bejeweled? Like that's the only thing that I can think that's probably still going for a mobile game. Is that as far as like people just kind of keep going? I mean, last I checked, former host of the podcast Chelsea Caw was somewhere in like the thousands of levels on that game.
Hmm.
So like outside of that, like this is pretty good like longevity as far as you know keeping people playing the game because yeah, I can't think of too many things people go back to. God, outside of like even you think of like non-mobile games, things people are going back to. That's like WoW and Call of Duty and uh, uh, what the Madden series. And even then, outside of WoW, like those are new games every year. This is the same game.
Yeah.
They just keep adding stuff to it. So like really, there are few things that can boast what Pokemon Go is doing, uh, no matter what platform it's on.
Isn't this like the anime like version though of Madden because it's like you just mentioned how Madden has like entries every year
hmm
and Pokemon Go, while it may not have a brand new game every single year, it does just tweak it a little bit
hmm
and I just did the tweaking like I'm you know going after a nipple here, but it was for the folks that aren't watching the video that aren't traumatized by that. It does kind of feel like a mobile game Madden because each year or each couple of months we just
hmm
get something slightly different. It's not like we've got an actual story or anything. We've kind of got the research stuff that
Yeah.
carries you week over week, but that's the same thing. I mean,
Pretty
it's
much. I mean, because that's where it feels like it's getting really like they've run out of ideas because so much of it is like just kind of recycling stuff that they've done. Like I don't know how many rocket events they can keep doing to make those feel
mm,
fresh because they can't. Like it's just this literal same thing. Like oh shucks, Team Rocket's back again, gang. We better take care of them. It just kind of feels like it's the same. Like as far as like any attempt they do to any sort of narrative is very very weak and rehashed every year.
doesn't Team Rocket just seem like almost like with Star Wars and suddenly how an empire just rises up and nobody does anything about it because everybody seems to love Pokemon. There's a lot of
hmm
good-natured and competitive people out there in the universe. Like, how can Team Rocket keep getting people to sign up?
Well, I mean, it's maybe benefits. Maybe those are really good. They seem to just give you Pokemon as well. They're usually not great, but you get something for it. And the leader vows to just keep going. That's not like he went away and just, and somehow Giovanni returned. He's
Yeah.
just always been there lurking in the background.
And he's a sharp dressed man, which honestly, how can
Very.
you not
Hmm.
how can you not support that? So
No,
I get
I'm
it.
just kind of sad though that Jesse and James have been back in a long time. Like I
I
get
will.
like you can only do so much with them because like they kind of have like they've only ever had like what 9 Pokemon to their names. But hell, I'd fucking play that. I'd fight them every time if they'd come back. Like bring back
Is
Jesse and James. They're fun.
and that's one of those crazy things. Like back when we last talked about this topic,
Mm-hmm.
you and I were already talking about the struggle of shinies and all that grinding and all that stuff. The Alolan forms
Mm-hmm.
were technically out already, but we didn't get everything, and so we were getting event based stuff where you got a little bit more at a time. And to your point, Joe, yeah, we had that one event where Jesse and James were in the Meowth balloon instead of the
Mm-hmm.
rocket balloon,
Yeah.
and it was like this is one of the coolest things you guys have done in the game,
Mm-hmm.
and we've never seen them since.
No, I mean they could even have fun and like try and bring back the attempt at replacing Jesse and James anime with Butch and Cassidy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like they were around for what? I think it was literally like I don't even say a full season. Like I think during the Johto League, like Butch and Cassidy came by for a bit, and then they were I don't even remember how they left. Barely remember them how they came there. They were just suddenly there. You could throw them in as just kind of a hey, here's something different, and you can even I don't know maybe even have it where like Jesse and James are at some sort of weird small like Team Rocket civil war with them. I don't know. It's just something a little different than just like, oh, you've got to find the 3 bosses that lead to the big boss. Oh no, here we go. What legendary does he have? It's a shadow Pokemon now. And I will
Mm-hmm.
never, ever, ever forgive this game for not having Shadow Lugia with the color palette that they
Yeah,
had in like Pokemon XD. Like
correct.
you can do that. You can make that any color you want in the game. That's something that would get people excited is have that shadow Pokemon look different. Nah, just give them the same aura, red eyes, call it a day. Lazy.
Seriously, they don't show a whole lot of creativity from that
Mm-mm.
standpoint, which is so weird because I feel like there's got to be somebody who might have access to like a Pokemon Bible. There has to be somebody on that staff that's
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to these things because we're getting all these different versions of certain Pokemon. Obviously, they know to put different hats on Pikachu, but it does
God.
it does feel like they
Mm-hmm.
understand some of the different energy types, some of the vortex
Mm-hmm.
based things, and how there's different types of abilities that legendaries can have. Like clearly they understand that stuff, but they don't really do much with it.
No, it's like they have access to everything. It's not like you've got some they're trying to claim that they don't have any source material when there's plenty of source material. And yes, I'm going to slam Star Wars twice in like 5 minutes, but it's like they half try because even like what they tried getting people excited for was this Go Battle League. And
Oh,
in a way to kind of like amp up like PvP and the idea of like, oh hey, like battling other trainers has always been a part of Pokemon. Let's try and bring that in. And I don't know about you, but Mark, how much do you use the Go Battle League, or how much did you ever use the Go Battle League?
honestly, Joe, I kind of treat it like a bathroom stall at a gas station. I only use the Go Battle League if I absolutely have to.
Yeah,
There's not really any other reason to do it, and
no.
I don't buy into the whole concept of like this league focus where they have you compete for a certain period of time. You can go through different levels, and then there's different rewards that you can get based on
Mm-hmm.
that. Now, that idea is kind of cool to me, but there doesn't really seem to be a true gauge of skill when you go into those things. And
No.
most people, you can kind of see it that are maybe legit contenders.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have like the same like cycle of like 6 or 7 Pokemon that you'll
Yeah.
see, and they all have like double moves. They all know
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing with them. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, as tough as those fights can be, Joe, sometimes it still just comes down to who taps the hardest and fastest. I mean,
Pretty much. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's not really like a true showing of skill or even the type of tactics that you need to play like a card game, right? It,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's not like you're building decks that have a very specific play that happens within like 6 or 7 moves, and you're doing your best to manage that. It's like no, you're still just tapping buttons
Yeah.
and hoping that they don't use their shields and that you can, have that gotcha hit when they're not expecting it.
Exactly. Like, I just feel like even then, like, why not have the Go Battle League actually build to something more fun? Because like you'll get like a unique reward for completing the Battle League season, and even then, it's like a Pokemon that
Pose.
they'll lock behind that or oppose. Like it's never been anything that I have really like longed for. Like oh no, I must have this. It's like nah, whatever. It just makes me think like you could do better with it. Like why not have something where if you have like a winning record at the end of the season, a gym leader pops up like you as you're walking around, or something comes up and you can incorporate the gym leaders from the various regions and maybe an Elite Four thing, something that makes those battles worth it. Or a storyline that even would involve them would be great. You have all of these characters and all these things you could do, and you just kind of keep like, yeah, we'll have this kind of lazy system in place. We'll choose the rewards for it, and we'll just keep it going. I don't know, just
I,
feels lazy.
I still don't understand why a story concept is really that hard to do for this game, because the research based stuff that we've kind of talked about,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's the week over week stuff that doesn't actually really involve a story. You're just collecting tasks and completing them,
Yeah.
and then you move on to that
Mm-hmm.
next reward. So that's not really story driven. But occasionally there will be events that have like a 4-part or a 10-part series or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually little bits of things that are kind of happening that you can read about or just skip through quickly, like I do.
Yeah.
And so that's that's fine and all. I think what they really do still suffer from is the idea that it doesn't matter who your starter is.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real attachment to your starter, and what you do with that starter has no consequence, right? So
No,
do you?
and the only thing that they could have possibly done like nicely to like warn everyone is like, hey, the Pokemon you choose to start with has perfect IVs. Don't get rid of it. That would have been nice to know. Because
Yeah,
I recycled my Charmander a long time ago when I realized like, oh hey, I just need candy and I can't tell individual IVs because in that old rating system, I didn't
yeah,
know what the hell it meant. And I know that that appraisal system wasn't even there
no,
when I released him. So it's like, yeah, had I known he was a perfect Charmander, I wouldn't have gotten rid of him. I would
yeah.
have kept him, evolved him, and funneled stuff into him. But nah, whatever.
All you could tell
Mm-hmm.
in the old system was that there was, if it told you that its strongest attributes was like attack, HP, and defense, you knew those stats were the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it says I'm simply blown away, if you were on Team Valor, it would always say like simply blown away.
Yeah.
Other trainers or other leaders had different things they said, but you could at least kind of figure out, okay, these stats are all the same and they're perfect because they said
Mm-hmm.
this. Okay, so
Yep.
like you could figure that part out. But yeah, for most of us in the beginning, we had no idea.
No
I
clue.
probably
No
transferred
clue.
plenty of perfect things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to that point, man, like going back to the original comments that we made about Pokemon Go, in the very beginning, it was kind of this like buffet in a sense, because you really only had a couple of generations and they
Mm-hmm.
were released in mass,
Yeah.
right? So you could just go out there and you could potentially encounter any one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, though, they didn't do that. And throughout the last several years, we've got just like so many different regions now, like literally all the way up to Paldea is in the
Mm-hmm.
game now, the current
Yep.
stuff. And we've got a bunch of other regions, though, that just aren't complete. They've been sporadically thrown in there as,
Mm-hmm.
world tournaments happen, as, new card expansions happen. And it's a completely different field now.
Yeah. Well, because it felt like there was like at least like when you like you said with the like you think of the first three regions with Kanto, Johto, and Hoenn, that like there was like kind of like a release schedule. Like you're not going to have all of Kanto at right away. You're going to get some Johto, and then we'll finish releasing Kanto, and then that way now you've got Kanto. Is completed. We're slowly releasing Johto. Here's Hoenn. Johto isn't all there, and they would kind of like as for lack of better terms, they'd strafe it like that, or they would like kind of scaffold it like that. And now it's just like, hey, they're all there. We'll get to it eventually. Which I don't know for people who like to have things complete, and you're just looking at a Pokédex that just has massive gaps and huge entries. Like, oh, those aren't in the game, so that's
Yeah.
just there. Mm-hmm.
And that's how Ditto was originally because they didn't have like a mechanic in place to actually have Ditto behave in
Mm-hmm.
game. So it just wasn't there. Smeargle was the next version of that, where they just didn't know how do we make Smeargle work for this game.
Mm-hmm.
So neither one of them had a presence, and so those gaps were just kind of there for the first few years. But then, Joe, they did something differently to cause more of those gaps to appear. And it's because in the beginning of the game, Joe, we had the safari stuff, like the world
Mm-hmm.
safari, where you could travel to a location, you go here, there's like a special thing, there might be a featured Pokemon, whatever. And they kept doing that, but with like a miniaturized version of GoFest. And so now you have these like little
Mm-hmm.
tiny GoFest locations, but it means now that if you don't go to those, you're just not going to get
Yeah,
stuff.
getting it. Yeah. Which, I mean, you would, I don't know, like one of the best lessons I think Pokemon Go learned from when they tried doing GoFest is to not do GoFest that way because like it crashed. It was horrible. Like they had, I think what they didn't they have to like refund everyone's ticket to that GoFest because it just didn't work.
The original, I remember the original one.
Mm-hmm.
The network they had in Chicago just like
Just
completely just
crashed.
collapsed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it just didn't
So
work.
like it just sucked, and I think we did one paid for Go Fest event. I think when we went to Chicago, and it was all right. It was fine, but honestly, like when they made Go Fest just open to everyone, you need to purchase tickets, and it was worldwide. It was way better than traveling to a specific location and being locked in to like, oh, I have to be here to be able to catch these things. That level of exclusivity was just kind of dumb. Like regional locking, like that I understood that was okay, but have a way for us to feasibly like trade Pokemon long distance. Don't make it so we have to be within like 2 feet of each other because, like, I don't know, I'm probably not seeing from in Australia anytime soon. But they did fix that by working them into events that you could do. So, like, they figured out kind of the best way to like solve that problem, but then still also keep the worst part of it, and that is locking Pokemon behind events where if you don't get it, sorry, no Skiddo for you.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do?
I
Or
I still
Skidoo,
missed out.
Skiddo? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Skiddo, Keldeo, I missed out on
Mm-hmm.
both of those.
Yep.
Keldeo actually was one that I had no idea even had come out because I just
Mm-hmm.
at that point in time I think I wasn't paying attention to the announcements. And
Yep.
you just feasibly, as we've aged with this game, Joe, we've added pets, we've added children, we've added larger financial burdens, and you just can't drop everything you're doing
No.
and go
Mm-mm.
take off halfway across the country for an event for one single Pokemon.
No.
Now, if you
Mm-hmm.
if you are going out there and doing that, fine. I'm not judging you for it.
Mm-mm.
Like it's great that you can, but I just can't do it.
I think even like the standard of like reducing the amount of uh, remote raid passes you can use a day, which we'll get to more of this later. But for those of us who just can't get out and do as many mobile things as we could before, because again we're tied down by the responsibilities, but still like to enjoy the game. We still like to raid with friends, like. And then you make it so like we can only do like 5 or 6 a day now. It's like, well, one, that's just limiting the amount of money you're making off of those raid passes. So that's really stupid. Why not make
Hmm.
it so that, oh yeah, no, just keep buying them. It's
Yeah,
like, again, like I don't understand it because like one of the best things they did to this game was add remote raid passes where like, oh hey, I've got friends raiding something like far away. I'm not gonna be able to drive or walk there in time for the raid, but I can do it. Fantastic. This is a great idea. And again, they make money off of that because, that that's in game it's an in-game transaction. So it just doesn't make sense to me why you would cap that. It was such a fantastic part of the game that they're doing something stupid with.
yeah. When the remote raid pass first came out,
Mm-hmm.
that was actually probably the most amount of time I actually spent playing this game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was obviously playing a lot in my
Mm-hmm.
past, and for those of you looking at the video version of this, like my eyes are kind of drifting off to
Yeah.
like remembering just how much I played
Mm-hmm.
this game. But the remote raid passes, they did kind of unlock this possibility because for the Lake Trio, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of us had the Azelf, and you're just like, great, I got the little blue guy.
Yeah.
But it's like, but I want to go after these other ones, and
Mm-hmm.
and if you basically don't have the opportunity to travel to Asia or Europe very often, you're just going to be lost. You're not going to be able to get them ever. And
Yeah.
let alone, Joe, the shiny chase, which
Oh God. Hmm.
we
I don't have
you and
all
I have.
those. Yeah. No. Like the general shiny chase. Yeah. Oh.
Well, but
Hmm.
and the raid
Hmm.
chase though, they've consistently made raids this like point of contention or a pain
Hmm.
point for people because yeah, if you obviously don't live there, you're not going to have a chance at it.
Hmm.
You've already mentioned how if you don't go to these world events where people may have them, how often are you going to find somebody who got it legit that just happens to live near you?
Yeah.
So I mean, and
Hmm.
and it actually continues from there, Joe, because the raid system. I mean, some people love it, some people hate it.
Hmm.
I think I'm kind of like right in the middle because they did something with some of the most recent entries in the generational Pokedex, which involves Lycanroc, which has three different forms, of which
Hmm.
there are many Pokemon now, Joe, that have like some of them have like 10 different forms.
Yeah.
And so with the Lycanroc specifically though, you have to be able to get the dusk form out of a raid or in an event where they are in the wild, which they do occasionally have a wild.
Hmm.
Go Fest did this, but the dusk form is very rare to get, and so if you don't get it from typically the raids where they were first, done, you're just not going to see it.
Yeah.
So it's getting to the point, Joe, where like you almost need to have like an associate's degree in Pokemon Go to understand how you're going to get every one
Hmm.
of these damn things.
No, and it's like keeping up with the game and when these events are going to happen. Like they do a good job of like they're telling you the announcements are going on, but like I don't know, like I don't remember Dusk and Rock showing up. Maybe I probably missed the announcement. That could be on me more than anything. But yeah, like you said, like you just have to be constantly on top of things. You have to be constantly connected with everyone to do well in this game. Because if you want to do well in the game, it's either that or you're I don't know independently wealthy and have a private jet. You can fly to other countries and do and complete the game. Uh, God, it seems ridiculous. And then what was there was a what Enamorous was there? Like, do you even have that one?
I don't have an Amorous.
I don't have an Amorous. No one,
I,
no one has an Amorous.
I mean, there's probably a handful of
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
I call them the Pokemon demigods of where I live that play this game, consistently.
Hmm.
I know some of them were able to do the Enamorous, but that falls into that area where at one point in time we used to have like 1 star through 5 stars of difficulty.
Hmm.
Then they whittled it down to 1, 3, and 5, and now there's like this weird like 6 star area. I think it is
Hmm.
where those are specific difficulties for specific days, typically like a Sunday or a Saturday.
Hmm.
And then you have to be in person to be able to do them. And what I mean, this could just be me becoming an adult. I don't know. I'm not judging anybody else. I will not dedicate my time to go drive out to a raid and do that.
No,
It's it just
no,
seems it yeah.
it's insane because again, like it's what they're doing is I feel like this is the same similar pains that I have with Overwatch, and that like I have like my favorite character Farah, and every time they do something to her to make her better, they do something for the sake of balancing that makes it worse. So
Yeah.
like when she has her jetpack takeoff, that used to be like a 10-second cooldown. They added like this boost for her on top of that. Uh, so now her cooldown is 14 seconds. Her fuel consumption's faster. So it's like she can barely fly anymore. Like the point of her is to fly. The point of the raids is to get people to go to them. So when you're going to reduce like the number of people who can remote into them, it just doesn't make any sense. And this is on top of them doing like one thing good for raids in I don't know the past 3 years, and that's finally they have a button that says ready, where you can
Yeah.
just say you'll go and do the raid. And even at first, that was still like fucked and wrong. And that like if I was doing a 1 tier raid and I was doing one in the lobby, I couldn't hit ready. Like I don't need anyone's help. I'm ready. I can do this. And nope, you have to wait. You got to wait for one other person before you can hit that button. It took them forever to be like, no, okay, I guess you can just hit ready whenever you fucking want now. So they do one good thing for raids, and then they take away how many remote passes you can do. They start adding multiple different types of raids, like on top of that the 6 tier raid. There's also
Hmm.
shadow raids with shadow Pokemon,
Oh my God, yes.
and remote passes don't work for those either.
No, they do not. They never have, and I think it's silly because the shadow stuff, not just the raid based stuff, but even the rocket takeovers on the stops and everything. The idea of having that wall in front of shinies, because the shadow shinies are obviously much more rare. They're harder to
Oh
get.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So making them be an in person thing, it doesn't make sense to me. Like
No.
and you already kind of alluded to this. That's like, well, why would you keep yourself from making
Mm-hmm.
money off of people that want to do this? And I remember a couple of years ago that they said that they're limiting the remote raids because they think it's inspiring or uh, promoting bad behavior. It's promoting people to spend to win. And it's like, well, but Pokemon Go has always been that way.
Yeah.
The people who could buy raid passes were the ones out there getting the best
Yeah.
legendaries,
It's
you
always
know?
been a freemium game. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So why would you draw the line at remote raid passes? It's kind of like, yeah, I've done plenty of drugs, but I draw the line at heroin. It's like, okay.
Say, hold on.
It's like
It's like you're still doing meth. Like, what are you doing?
well, and I know that's an
Mm-hmm.
extreme, but it's like,
Yeah, but
but either way, like it's a
mm-hmm.
you talked about the whole readiness thing. That's a quality of life thing.
Mm-hmm.
Raid passes, when you talk about a game that's been around this long, I mean, you and I have looked at the numbers. We were talking about this a little bit before. Pokemon Go is a game that's kind of lived and died in the shadow of obviously good weather, but more
Mm-hmm.
importantly, a little thing called COVID, as you've pointed out. But it's got an interesting trajectory though in terms of revenue because it made a ton of money. It made like $500 million when the game first came out that first year, so about
Mm-hmm.
$500 million. It actually dipped a little bit in that second year, as you've talked about. We had that space in between first and second gen,
Mm-hmm.
and it just didn't really have much to
Yeah.
pull you in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then as raids became a thing and then more generations got added, you saw that revenue improve quite a bit up until the point where like, well, everybody again is playing Pokemon Go. It's the perfect game to
Yeah.
play during a
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. So it reached a high of $900 million, I think, in 2020 specifically. But last year, Joe, it actually came back down to the exact same level it was when the game first came out. Which for a mobile game,
Mm-hmm.
I know $500 million is not chump change.
No.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'd take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something to go like, well, Pokemon Go is clearly dead. It's not coming back. But I mean, there's just not much to keep you here though. If your goal
Mm-hmm.
was to basically complete your decks, right? Because that's what we all did in the beginning. We were all just like, let's complete the decks. I want to get all of them
Yeah.
that I can get.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even if you want to get all of them, you either need to have frequent flyer miles,
Mm-hmm.
or, as I mentioned to you, heavily study the release schedule and know exactly what's happening at any given time.
And even then, making availability for that, it's like this isn't a game that like primarily like. And I think what I'd be interested to see, because like you can look at the metrics of like user data over like active players and how that's dropped, because that hasn't hit the 2016 high, where it's quite a bit down. But I'd be interested to see like the actual like demographic data on the game over who's actually playing it, because this isn't like kids aren't playing this game. Like they're not. Like as far as like when it comes to like me like talking with like I mean, like me teaching, I get to have a sight finger on the pulse and talk with the children and see what they're doing these days. None of them are playing Pokemon Go. None of the middle schoolers, none of the high schoolers. This is a Gen X and millennial thing. We're the ones playing the game. So primarily it's going to be mostly us, and then they're going to be the people who are parents who make accounts for their kids and play for them. But
But let's
mm-hmm,
amend that a little bit, Joe, because we live in the United States of America,
mm-hmm,
specifically within the great state of Wisconsin. And Joe, Wisconsin, I think, is a little bit different than, let's just say, compared to
mm-hmm,
Japan.
yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so Japan, I think, might be a different thing. right? I mean,
Very
actually, you went to
likely, yeah.
Japan recently, didn't you?
I did. Hmm.
So, I mean,
Granted,
what were raids
like
like there? I mean, were people always in them or what?
not to the extent like say like when I was in New York a few years ago, but also I was in New York in 2021, which was still when like playership was pretty high. But I remember like being in New York and it was like you'd see raids and there was always someone in the lobby when you were there. And I was staying on Times Square, so there was raids going on. People were in them all the time. When I was in Tokyo, not quite the same vibe. So it
Hmm.
wasn't like they were there. There were people raiding, and you could see them, but it wasn't like everything. And this was like obviously I don't expect like little 1 tier guys to always have people raiding them, but like there'd be times where like I would see like 5 tier like the tier 5 raids, and no one's in the gym, no one's there trying to raid it, and it was in like a popular place. Like I was in like Diver City in Odaiba, which if you're not familiar with that, it's a massive shopping mall. It's at the 1-to-1 Gundam statue in front of it. It's a very busy place. No one was raiding it, so it's
Hmm.
just like, huh, well, never mind. Um, yeah.
Hey
So
Joe,
mhm,
for like I know I just literally made fun of Wisconsin in comparison to the rest of the world. I mean, we are the fighting
mhm.
30th though, the 30th
We
state
are.
of the union. But when it comes to communities though, when you started to look at the old Silk Road before it closed down, which is
Hmm.
still bizarre to me that stopped being a thing.
Yeah.
Madison was actually one of the bigger cities for Pokemon Go.
Hmm.
And when you look at just the community of people that are playing here and the amount of people that we have that you can lean on, like it is a fairly dense, population of Pokemon Go players compared to maybe other states, maybe other
Yeah.
areas of the world. But to that point, Joe, the amount of players that are live nowadays, we see anywhere from about 15 to 20 million active players with some variance, right?
Hmm.
Now, overall, though, uh, within like the monthly data, it looks like about 85 million people are typically playing this game.
Okay.
Um, so
Still
not
quite a
maybe,
few. Hmm.
yeah, maybe not logging in
Hmm.
every day, but people are still, you've got like a small nation of people playing this game.
Hmm.
And so to me, yes, it's never going to reach 2016 heights. That was just that was a very unique time.
Hmm.
It was the game we didn't even know we needed, right?
Yeah.
but 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 as we talked about, Joe, within 8 years, it's back to pre-pandemic spending.
Hmm.
And granted, we're in a bit of a world recession right now in a lot of ways. But Joe, you can't tell me the enthusiasm is the same, which you've already mentioned.
Hmm.
And it doesn't seem like this game is really evolving past the same shiny dynamics we've talked about even
Hmm.
3 years ago,
No.
you know?
That's the thing, because like I feel like for those who are still playing, that's probably what they're mostly playing for, is to get those, because they're taking forever to release the full Pokédex. Again, like the rewards and the quests are meh. Like they're not necessarily fun. There's an alien guy in there now. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know his name. I've never read any of his texts. I'm like, oh, you're not the professor, but I'll do jobs for you. I don't care. Um,
He's
and like
Daft
the
Punk.
bat,
He's ba-
he's Daft Punk's still alive for us.
Seriously, he literally looks like half of
Hmm.
Daft Punk just thrown into Pokemon. And
Hmm.
of course, I had to buy that outfit as soon as it was available. But yeah, but you're right though. You're right.
Yeah.
There's
Hmm.
stuff in this game. I mean, and here's part of it, Joe. Like this is my true opinion at this stage. I barely had much knowledge of Pokemon when I
Hmm.
first started playing the game in 2016. Like I had a pop culture awareness of it. I obviously knew who the starters were from the original gen and even a little bit of the second and third. But for the most part, I didn't know really a whole lot about it. I
Hmm.
learned a ton on the go. Now we're getting to a point where even people who were big fans of Pokemon, they don't even know what's coming out anymore.
Hmm.
I mean, they're seeing stuff that's like, I don't know what that is. I used to, dude, Joe. There was that one point in time where I could have named you like the first 400 Pokemon
Hmm.
without because I was playing that much. I knew every single one. I could tell you every single one. I don't even know where to begin now.
Hmm.
Like no clue.
No, no. So my thoughts on the situation, to kind of like put things in wrapping them up here, is that Niantic is just kind of more dedicated to the original like mission statement of the game. That's to get people like out and going and doing things, as opposed to listening to their players and their customer base and what they actually want. Every once in a while, you'll get them saying, "Hey, we're going to actually." Like when pandemic procedures were lifting and they were going to take remote passes away, and there's immediate like outcry and demand on Twitter over saying like that's ridiculous to do that. We're going to stop playing. Oh, we won't take it away then. Outside of like immediate crazed outcry, it's like they kind of don't care about what's going on. Like, no, we're just gonna keep doing the same thing. And that stagnation, I think, is what's really hurting the game, as well as like kind of even lackluster events. Like currently we are in at the time of this recording, Adventure Week, and I cannot begin to like say my vent my frustrations over the fact that they dare to say we're featuring Tyrant and Cranidos and the freaking Brachiosaur Aurora, yeah, um,
Oh wow,
Auroras. Yeah,
I can't even
I'm
remember.
blanking. It's the freaking sauropod looking
Yeah,
Pokemon. Those right on their Twitter, like these are the featured Pokemon. All of them are locked in eggs, raids, or what am I thinking? Quests.
hmm
Like if you're featuring them, I should be able to find them. Actually, on one of their posts, they said, "Who are you looking forward to catching most?" And I said Drillbur and Bunnelby. Oh wait, no, I'm not looking forward to them, but they're the ones that are spawning absolutely everywhere instead of anything we'd rather catch.
yeah,
It's just stupid. Like this has always been like awesome week to catch fossil Pokemon, and
yeah.
now you get the three Kanto ones, and those are the only ones you see in the wild right now. It's like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yep, and
Adventure Week
yeah,
was always like
mm-hmm,
a big week for me. I loved it because some of the rock
mm-hmm,
Pokemon were the ones that I don't know if you want to say they had a higher shiny or it was like the shiny rate was just worse or something. I don't know.
mm-hmm.
But Amara was the one you're thinking of, by the way.
There we go. Yep.
Um, they're really cool. Usually, they're some of the starkest contrast in terms of shinies, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
original Geodude was like bright gold instead of
Yeah.
all gray looking, and
Mm-hmm.
Amara is kind of in the same boat. It's like a instead of blue, it's like a bright white.
Yeah.
Uh, Tyrant is literally blue instead of brown.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of cool things usually, and yeah, dude. Even I, as you and I texted this week about it, I was like, yeah, Joe, I can't do it. I'm working. I don't have
Yeah.
that much interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not going to go out there and
No.
explore this week, man.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Just.
Fall from Grace, dude. They really they
Mm-hmm.
have really seemed to be stingy with what they feature these days, which doesn't make any
Mm-hmm.
sense because of how many Pokemon are literally out there. And unfortunately, Joe, we don't have that kind of time anymore, and we're also out of time today. But we do want to thank you for listening to Digital Dissection, and your support goes a long way. And if you like this episode, check us out on YouTube, where we make weekly videos about our favorite things.
We also love hearing from you, so feel free to message us at digitaldissectionpodcast@gmail.com or in our communities across social media. We love your ideas, suggestions, and, well, pretty much anything you would like to share with us as long as it's tastefully done. And until next time, pop culture nerds, keep on dissecting.